An emergency palace communiqué barely 90 seconds old has left the royal world gasping. At precisely 8:01 a.m., a sudden announcement hit the official channels, signaling a radical change in royal duties. Phones buzzed, aides scrambled, and one senior royal reportedly stormed out of a room in disbelief. What was once unthinkable is now underway. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The message arrived with no preamble, its language cold, clinical, and unlike anything issued in recent memory. Unlike the carefully crafted statements of royal protocol, this one was immediate, abrupt, and electrifying. Buckingham Palace's official site posted a single headline: restructuring of royal duties effective immediately. No warning, no leaks, just a bolt of upheaval that sent shockwaves through every corridor of royal power. Within minutes, private lines were alight with frantic calls. Aides darted through archways with unreadable expressions. Even seasoned press secretaries were seen pausing, rereading the notification, their faces tightening with disbelief. The air, insiders say, became thick with anxiety. Perhaps most telling was the speed at which key figures began moving. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was seen arriving at Clarence House just 7 minutes after the alert, dressed in deep navy and flanked by senior aides. Eyewitnesses say her face was composed, but her arrival without William spoke volumes. Why her, and why now? Meanwhile, Queen Camilla, according to a longtime palace staffer, appeared at an upper window of Buckingham itself, pacing, visibly shaken and pale. Those close to her describe her as caught completely off guard, having received no advance notice of the reorganization. For someone once considered a central pillar of royal continuity, Camilla's sudden absence from the inner briefing rooms marked a seismic shift. Even more jarring was the reaction from the monarchy's traditionally unshakable core, its courtiers. Several were reported to have left mid-meeting upon seeing the message. Others cancelled scheduled engagements for the day, citing unprecedented internal developments. One long-serving official was overheard whispering, "This changes everything," before vanishing into the secure wing of St. James's. What's more disturbing is the absence of any signal beforehand. Royal watchers, insiders, and even the most connected journalists were blindsided. There had been no murmurs in the days prior, no whispered corridors of dissent. The silence before the storm had been absolute. And yet, it is the timing of the announcement that raises the most questions. Why now? Why on a quiet morning without any ceremonial pretext? The answer may lie in the weeks leading up to this moment, weeks where small clues now, in hindsight, seem to scream for attention. From Catherine's increased private meetings with the king, to Camilla's sudden cancellation of an overseas charity appearance, to the unexplained pause in William's public schedule, there was a current beneath the surface, slowly building, carefully hidden. But what exactly did this shocking message reveal? And why is the entire royal duty structure under fire? Let's decode the moment the monarchy's foundations began to shift. The statement was brief, just 137 words, but every syllable carried the weight of centuries. The palace declared an immediate reassignment of royal duties, citing a renewal of operational priorities. But what does that really mean? And who stands to gain or lose the most? Within moments, the public saw what insiders had been dreading. This wasn't a mild adjustment, it was a full-scale restructuring of the monarchy's core machinery. Ceremonial, international, and domestic responsibilities, long guarded by protocol and generational custom, were shattered and redistributed. For some, it was an unprecedented opportunity. For others, it felt like exile cloaked in diplomacy. The shock deepened as names began to emerge, attached to roles that didn't match their current standing. At the very top of the list, Catherine, Princess of Wales, now named primary representative for diplomatic duties, a title not seen in modern times, and one that positions her as the face of the monarchy across the globe. This wasn't a symbolic nod. This was authority granted directly from the crown. The implications were immediate. With Catherine's elevation came a direct reduction in Queen Camilla's visibility. Her future appearances, once a symbol of continuity, have been cut by over 40%. In palace terms, that isn't just a schedule change. It's a political earthquake. And it didn't stop there. Prince Edward and Princess Anne, two of the most respected working royals, were quietly reassigned to what the palace called heritage preservation roles. Though publicly dignified, the private murmurs tell a different story. Anne, once the monarchy's indomitable workhorse, has reportedly expressed concern behind closed doors. And Edward, whose engagements had recently picked up momentum, now finds himself increasingly detached from the royal frontline. Then came the surprise twist in Prince William's docket. Unlike others, his portfolio expanded dramatically. Matters traditionally reserved for the monarch, including state correspondence and oversight of confidential advisors, were added to his remit. He is no longer merely the heir. He has become the de facto power under the throne. The restructuring paints him not as the next in line, but as the one already stepping in. The use of the word realignment in the statement, to most, appeared sterile. But behind palace walls, it's being translated differently. It is being read as a coded signal. A reordering. A veiled demotion for those once secure in their status. And a quiet coronation for a new power axis forming within the royal core. Whispers now swirl around whether this is the beginning of a long-anticipated transition, or the climax of a silent civil war. Those who were once allies now sit on opposite ends of this reimagined table. The language may have been polished, but the intent is piercing. The monarchy isn't just evolving, it's choosing sides. And as those choices unfold in real time, the emotional weight behind them can no longer be masked by titles and formality. Yet behind the royal lingo lies a deeper narrative, one of rivalry, silent battles, and power plays long in the making. Insiders are calling it the fall of Camilla's circle. Once surrounded by loyal advisors and influential allies, the queen consort now finds herself isolated. Behind closed doors, loyalty is shifting, and those who once protected her are either silent or gone. The unraveling began quietly, almost too subtly to notice. But within days of the palace's restructuring decree, 3 of Camilla's most trusted aides were either reassigned or quietly dismissed. These weren't low-level figures, they were the very people who had helped shape her public image, shield her from political backlash, and amplify her influence within royal decision-making. Their sudden removal sent a clear message: Camilla's grip was slipping. And perhaps more jarring than their exits was the absence of defense. Not one statement, not one leak in her favor. Just a fenning silence where loyalty once stood. Then came the blow that stunned even her inner loyalists. Camilla's long-planned charity tour, months in the making, was cancelled without a single public reason. Invitations rescinded, schedules wiped clean, and no official replacement offered. Royal sources whisper that it wasn't her decision, that the tour's cancellation came from above, and that her attempt to reverse it was met with closed doors. One insider described the atmosphere as cold, final, and deeply humiliating. In an institution where appearances are everything, such an act is not just logistical, it's symbolic. It cuts deeper than protocol. It challenges presence. Behind the scenes, it said Camilla made a direct appeal to King Charles in the hours following the duty announcement, not out of protest but desperation, a plea to preserve her influence, to retain her voice in matters she once led. But sources inside the palace suggest that her request was refused outright, with Charles allegedly stating, "It's not personal, it's necessary." If true, it signals not just a tactical shift in the monarchy, but an emotional severing that runs far deeper than the public realizes. There is also growing speculation that Prince Edward, often a quiet force behind the scenes, opposed Camilla's effort to challenge the redistribution of roles. Once neutral in most palace debates, Edward's recent movements suggest a more deliberate positioning, one aligned less with Camilla and more with the faction supporting the emerging royal order. His resistance may have delivered the final blow to her appeal, confirming that even old alliances were no longer secure. Now, with every passing day, Camilla's role appears to be shrinking into something ceremonial, stripped of influence and reduced to symbolic presence. It's not the loss of title or prestige that stings, it's the hollowing out of relevance. From once wielding quiet power through counsel and access, She now faces the reality of being sidelined in a family that is recalibrating its future without her at its center. But while Camilla's presence dims, another figure rises from the background with startling authority. In the middle of a storm, Catherine, Princess of Wales, has emerged as the calm and the command. No longer just the graceful future queen, she's now been declared the monarchy's unifying force. But how did this transformation occur so swiftly? And who helped engineer it? The shift didn't happen overnight. It was built in quiet moments, private strategy sessions, and the silent trust of a monarch under immense pressure. Over the past 3 weeks, Catherine held a series of discreet meetings with King Charles, encounters that at the time seemed routine. Now, they read like the groundwork of a royal power pivot. Behind palace doors, those conversations were reportedly focused not on fashion or family, but on crisis containment, generational legacy, and the survival of the crown's image. It was in those hushed dialogues that Charles is said to have found something steady, something unshakable. Catherine didn't just listen. She led. Today, that trust has manifested in tangible power. Catherine now oversees all youth, education, and diplomatic engagements, a portfolio that places her not just in public view, but at the heart of royal policy-making. And it's not symbolic. Multiple foreign embassies have confirmed that they've been briefed directly by Catherine's office, a first in modern royal history. The Princess of Wales, once admired for poise and presence, is now wielding operational command with stunning grace. This isn't ceremonial, this is real influence. Looking back, one can see the silent signals that were missed. Princess Anne, ever the stoic sentinel of the firm, made a subtle but telling gesture weeks ago, a quiet endorsement of Catherine's capability during a joint appearance. Paired with a rare public remark, she knows exactly what she's doing. At the time, it passed with little noise. Now, it rings like prophecy. The same Anne who stood loyally beside the Queen Mother, who resisted palace theatrics for decades, was among the first to acknowledge the power Catherine was preparing to wield. Public sentiment, too, has not merely followed Catherine, it has surged in her favour. In the days since the restructuring, polls have skyrocketed in support of her expanded role. Headlines now speak of royal confidence in the people's princess, and commentators from both sides of the political divide have noted her striking ability to navigate complexity with calm certainty. But nothing speaks louder than the document that never should have leaked. A handwritten memo by King Charles himself, referring to Catherine as my greatest stabilizer. Those 4 words, now circulated quietly among senior officials, reveal not only his confidence in her, but his reliance. In a family divided by legacy, scandal, and fading traditions, she has become the cornerstone he didn't realize he needed. Yet even as Catherine rises, not everyone is celebrating. A bitter clash is brewing behind velvet curtains. Prince William has had enough. Sources close to the prince say he drew a hard boundary just hours before the palace's announcement. A terse exchange with his father reportedly ended in slammed doors and one brutal ultimatum. It wasn't spontaneous. This confrontation had been simmering for months, if not years. William had watched quietly as Catherine was repeatedly sidelined, excluded from key events. Her influence undercut, her role diluted. He bit his tongue through the orchestrated dominance of Camilla's circle and the subtle rewrites of royal visibility. But after the recent charity snub and whispers of Camilla stepping into greater ceremonial oversight, William acted. Palace aides confirm he confronted King Charles directly in a meeting that was anything but cordial. What began as a calm discussion about representation reportedly spiraled into a battle of wills. William, unflinching, demanded immediate clarity and consequence. When his concerns were met with vague reassurances, he delivered a line that echoed through the marble corridors. You can't build a future by clinging to a past that's fading. The days that followed were anything but quiet. Behind the scenes, William called a closed-door meeting with the palace trustees, a circle of institutional power, often overlooked but deeply influential. For over 3 hours, he laid out a vision not just for restructuring, but for survival. A monarchy that fails to evolve, he argued, is a monarchy on borrowed time. Insiders say he wasn't asking for permission. He was drawing a line. And those in the room, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and notably Princess Alexandra, listened. What began as tension turned into consensus. The decision that emerged would shake the very core of royal assignments. Now, within the walls of the palace, William is being quietly referred to as the shadow strategist. He isn't the monarch, but he's guiding the moves behind the throne. While Charles signed the final orders, it's William's influence that shaped the contours. He chose to act not for position, but for preservation. And at the heart of it all was Catherine, not as a pawn to be protected, but as a partner whose voice had to be restored. His vision wasn't about retaliation, it was about rebalancing, about reminding the monarchy that duty must never be distorted by politics, and that legacy means little without trust. His allies have emerged more clearly than ever. Anne, with her principled Stedden, offered unspoken support. Edward, long underestimated, stepped into the fold with surprising conviction. And Alexandra, whose voice has rarely pierced public headlines, lent gravitas to William's arguments in ways few expected. This wasn't a rebellion, it was a reckoning. And when asked by a close aide what he hoped to achieve, William's answer was simple, even haunting. It's time to protect the future, not the past. But where does this leave King Charles? As whispers grow of fatigue and pressure, another possibility quietly emerges. Is the king quietly preparing the stage for transition? Those closest to the monarch say he's grown increasingly contemplative, spending more time at Balmoral and delegating duties in ways reminiscent of late Queen Elizabeth's twilight years. It began with a series of unexplained cancellations appearances that had been planned months in advance, now quietly removed from the royal calendar. At first, the public was told it was a scheduling shift, but inside the palace the mood shifted. Staff noticed the increasing presence of private couriers ferrying sealed envelopes between Buckingham and St. James's Palace documents that required no aides, no advisors, only the king's personal seal. Whispers began to circulate. Was Charles orchestrating a handover in silence, bypassing public ceremony for quiet control? The cancellation of 3 international briefings within the same week raised further alarm, especially among senior diplomats who had long relied on Charles as a steady, visible head of state. Sources inside Balmoral describe a monarch more introspective than ever. His walks have grown longer, his schedule more private, and his inner circle even smaller. But one name continues to surface behind closed doors: Catherine. Insiders reveal that the king has held multiple private conversations with her in recent days, not just about rent affairs, but about what one source called legacy safeguarding. These weren't routine check-ins, they were strategic dialogues. Charles, ever mindful of his late mother's longevity and grace under pressure, appears to be shaping the next era with deliberate care, and he's doing so with Catherine at the forefront. Even more revealing is the recent appointment of a new legal advisory team, personally selected by the king. Unlike the usual rotation of royal council, this team includes specialists in constitutional transition and historical precedent. That choice, in itself, speaks volumes. If this were merely about restructuring engagements, such expertise would be unnecessary. But if the question looming is about succession, about preparing the next public face of the monarchy, then the move makes perfect sense. And it's not just professional matters that are shifting. Queen Camilla has reportedly been excluded from a number of these pivotal meetings, particularly those held in Windsor, where decisions of symbolic weight often take shape. Whether this exclusion is tactical or personal, no one can say for sure, but the pattern is impossible to ignore. Then there is the issue of health. Official palace statements continue to assure that the king is in good condition, that his rest is precautionary. But one royal physician, speaking anonymously, confessed that while there is no current crisis, Charles is under close watch, a phrase that carries more weight than it appears to. Combined with his recent absence from the spotlight and his willingness to empower others, particularly William and Catherine, the speculation has evolved into expectation. This may not be abdication, but it could be something even more complex, a silent softening of reign, a controlled glide towards succession without ever saying the word. With a possible royal handover on the horizon, all eyes too RN to those who've been conspicuously silent. Until now. Known for her stoic resolve and refusal to play into drama, Princess Anne has finally spoken. In a strikingly candid moment during a private reception, she broke decades of silence to address the very changes reshaping the monarchy. It happened behind gilded doors, during what was meant to be a quiet evening among trusted supporters of the crown. But when Anne took the floor, the tone shifted instantly. With a voice that rarely entertains sentiment and a presence that has always commanded respect, she called the recent changes timely and overdue. For a woman known to guard tradition with unwavering loyalty, the words landed like thunder. No one had expected her to speak, let alone endorse what many had interpreted as a quiet coup. And yet, there she stood, defiant, deliberate, and absolutely clear. The monarchy needed to evolve, and its future was already taking shape. Her support for Catherine, though simple in delivery, was powerful in implication. "She's ready," Anne reportedly said, before pausing long enough for the silence to echo. There was no need for elaboration, everyone in the room understood. This was not just a sister-in-law offering polite praise. This was the princess royal, battle-hardened, respected across political and ceremonial lines, placing her confidence in Catherine as a future leader. Insiders say the room was stunned. For years, Anne had avoided aligning with any internal factions. But now, that neutrality had shifted into outright advocacy. What followed was even more striking. Without naming names, Anne made clear that influence without merit held no place in the modern crown. It was, by all accounts, a rejection of Camilla's increasingly fragile hold. One source who attended the reception called it the cleanest dismissal I've ever witnessed, elegant, brutal, and final. And just when? The air couldn't grow more charged. Anne shared a revelation few expected. She had discussed this exact future with Queen Elizabeth years ago. "We spoke of legacy often," she admitted, "and what would be needed to protect it." That admission, brief as it was, confirmed long-held rumours that the late Queen had always seen Catherine as a quiet anchor in the turbulent seas of royal life. But Anne saved her sharpest line for last. "Loyalty," she said, "is earned, not inherited." With those 6 words, she dismantled any pretense of automatic authority. In a family where bloodlines are everything, the message was unmistakable. Being born into power doesn't entitle one to keep it. And with that, Anne didn't just shift public perception, she reshaped the internal hierarchy. Royal insiders now believe her statement didn't just bolster Catherine's rise, it sealed it. Her speech, though untelevised and unrecorded, has become the defining whisper across Windsor's halls. But even as Anne champions the new order, dissent brews quietly in a corner of the royal family, one voice that could still ignite chaos. Just as the palace adjusts to internal upheaval, Prince Harry releases a cryptic video message, speaking from an undisclosed location. His tone is calm, but the words are anything but. Some changes come with a cost, he warns. Is he preparing to intervene, or is something else at play? The timing couldn't have been more deliberate, with the monarchy still reeling from Anne's declaration and whispers of Charles's soft retreat gaining momentum. Harry's unexpected broadcast hit the royal establishment like a crack of thunder. It wasn't lengthy nor theatrical, but it was sharp, calculated, and laced with venom. Though he named no one, the message's undertones left little room for ambiguity. "There are those," he said, "who rewrite legacy for convenience. But legacy isn't theirs to rewrite. It belongs to those who earned it and those who suffered for it." The statement wasn't just a reflection, it was an accusation, and everyone inside the palace knew exactly where it was aimed. Absent from the frame was Meghan Markle. Her non-appearance was noted instantly by commentators across the globe. For a couple who have positioned themselves as inseparable in their public narratives, her absence cast a shadow. Was it a conscious distancing, a strategic silence, or something far more personal? Royal insiders say it raised alarms not just because of who was missing, but because of what that absence might signal, a divide, either in the message or in the marriage itself. Whatever the reason, it added a layer of volatility to an already unpredictable development. The royal household was caught completely off guard. No warning, no communication, just a global drop that forced the institution to respond without preparation. Aides scrambled to prepare internal talking points. Advisors debated whether to acknowledge the message at all. but the blow had already landed. In private, it's reported that King Charles reached out directly to Harry mere hours after the broadcast, marking one of the few personal communications between father and son since the coronation. The content of that conversation remains undisclosed, but its urgency, described by one aide as quietly frantic, paints the full picture. The king was not simply blindsided, he was concerned. As for Catherine, sources close to her say she received the message with grace, but not shock. Saddened, but not surprised, is how one confidant described her reaction. Her silence, carefully maintained in public, is said to conceal a private weariness, a sense that even as the monarchy fights to rebuild its structure, the fractures within the family itself grow deeper by the day. And Harry's message, with its veiled threats and simmering resentments, has only widened that fault line. He may be miles away, but his words have struck the very heart of Windsor, not just because of what he said, but because of what he left unsaid. As the family reels from Harry's reappearance, the final chapter begins with one last royal revelation that no one expected. Buried in the palace's official statement was a single footnote, barely noticed by the press. But now, legal experts and royal historians have confirmed its meaning. A hidden clause that redefines who holds true authority in the monarchy moving forward. And it doesn't point to Camilla, Clause 4a. At first glance, it appeared insignificant, just another formal line in the long tradition of royal restructuring language. But within its phrasing lies the final twist in a saga already filled with seismic revelations. The clause officially grants executive ceremonial oversight to the primary diplomatic representative, none other than Catherine, Princess of Wales. That title alone might have seemed honorary weeks ago. Now, paired with this clause, it marks the most potent transfer of soft power the monarchy has seen in decades. Catherine no longer operates merely as a figurehead of diplomacy. She is the architect of ceremonial execution, the public strategist of the crown's next phase. In effect, she is now the monarchy's operational core, second only to the sovereign in symbolism, but first in visibility. What has truly stunned insiders is what wasn't said outright, but was undeniably written between the lines. Queen Camilla's role, for the first time, is listed not as co-sovereign or ceremonial leader, but as occupying a supportive capacity. The change is subtle but devastating. It strips her of the narrative she once commanded. After years of building influence in shadows, Camilla now finds her name edged to the margins by legal ink, quietly yet powerfully distancing her from future command. That footnote is not just about redefining responsibility, it's about redefining relevance. Adding to the gravity of the revelation is the detail of timing. The signature that approved Clause 4a wasn't affixed on the day the document was released. It was dated 10 days earlier, meaning this wasn't a reactive move sparked by family tensions. It was calculated, pre-planned, executed with precision by King Charles himself, long before public eyes were watching. For all his public silence, the king had already made his decision, and he had made it with Catherine in mind. Confirmation of the shift came not just in paperwork, but in symbols. The Queen Mother's scepter, an artifact steeped in generational power, has been transferred to Catherine's safekeeping. A move so symbolic that royal observers are calling it a quiet coronation. And behind the scenes, high-ranking clergy have reportedly been briefed on representational updates, with new language subtly altering how ceremonial leadership will be presented at future state functions. It is a recalibration of royal image, one that favors continuity, stability, and a new kind of command, one that rests not in tradition but in trust. Even the royal seal has not been left untouched. Officials have confirmed that it has been reissued with minor yet telling adjustments in duty allocations. Catherine's office is now embedded into the seal's administrative rotation, effectively formalizing her authority into the heart of the institution's identity. These aren't cosmetic changes, they are architectural, and they tell a story that no press release dared to speak aloud, with alliances shattered, roles reversed, and the balance of royal power forever changed. One thing is clear, the British monarchy has entered a new chapter. One no one saw coming. What happens next is anyone's guess. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.